Hi, this is Desmond Butts, and we're going to talk about 3D printing again. Here you can see these two little benchies, and these are used to benchmark how well your 3D printer is working. Now I have one in yellow and one in orange. This is Hatchbox PLA, this is the cheap no-name brand PLA. Quite a bit of difference between the two, but these two aren't too bad except for a little bit of marking here in the stack on this one. This one has a couple of other little issues I'm trying to work out. One of them is an abrasion mark here that's caused by the fan flow duct that's underneath for cooling next to the extruder on the bottom. This one I had sanded it down, not this down, but the extruder flow duct, and this seems to have solved part of that, but this has some other issues. And we're going to discuss those and some Cura settings that work well with the Duet Maestro conversion of the Ender 3. Okay, this is my Ender 3 with the Duet Maestro board upgrade. You notice that I have a different kind of a fan setup here going on. I got this little upgrade from Design Prototype Test. I also got these special little keepers here to prevent the Bowden tube from compressing and decompressing in here when you have retraction. Then as dampeners for the feet, I used a little piece of this high compression foam. I showed some pictures of this. I actually cut it out. It came with the original Ender 3 in the box, and I just took that high density foam and cut these little pads out for each foot, and it gives airflow underneath for the fan, quiets it down, provides that nice airflow right there, and makes it quiet and overall a lot smoother, a lot more dampening going on. Alright, this is another great view of this high density foam packing material. This came with the Ender 3 and was packed in it. You can see with my fingers, it's good and dense. Got great, you can see there with my fingers, it's good and dense, got great density to it. Okay, all I did was just take some scissors. You can see next to this one down here, I just sliced a piece off about like that, 4 of them, just cut them like that, placed them under each of the feet. Works fantastic, nothing special, but works great. Going on. Right now I'm using some yellow generic PLA, and we're doing a Benchy test, and we'll pull that off a little later and see how it works. One of the things that I will note is, if you can see underneath here, it's hard to see, but you can see the extruder and how close a tolerance these little fan pieces are that allow airflow to cool. One of the problems I was finding when I first put that on, and I'll show some pictures, is it was just as it was doing what it's doing now, was clipping the tip right there of the bow of the boat on each pass. And when it did that, it was making an abrasion mark, and I had to take a file down here and adapt this and reset some holes on the sides and try to raise it just enough that it would clear easily each time, even if the tip arched just a little bit. Hopefully you can see this. I don't know if it's focusing very well. Maybe not. Anyway, there's some abrasion going on right here in the bow of these, and that abrasion is caused by that rubbing. So what do we have here? We have a whole bunch of benchies, and when you're trying to figure out settings for your 3D printer, you're going to go through a bunch of these. Some of these I have labeled on when I did them, and this is what we can see here starting off. This is like number 6. Lots of stringing going on in there, lots of other problems going on. Holes in there from under extrusion. Just lots of problems. Slowly but surely, when we get around to, say, number 10, we're getting them to look a lot better. Okay, no stringing issues. However, I kept getting this little issue right here, and I couldn't figure this out. This is what I was talking about earlier, where that special end I have for cooling that I got, I had to modify it because it was actually dragging a little bit, because when this front end was printed, it arched up a little, and as it went back and forth over it, it would nick it, and that's an abrasion from that and cause the print to not be as clean as it could be. So a little more work on it. Also just noted, this is one that I just recently did. Still had that problem. It's getting a little bit better. But I printed the same one after I filed it down with yellow PLA. This is a generic PLA, but I had it filed down, and so this looks much smoother. Has some other issues going on, probably with cooling. Got some like salmon skin and some other stuff. Also, I kept getting this little twisting up here. The exact same slicer settings from Cura on this one and this one, but this is Hatchbox PLA, and you can see I don't get that little cooling twisting problem up here in the stack, but I still had a little of this because I hadn't filed it down and cleaned it up yet. So right now I'm printing 2 more of these, and 1 in each color. We'll see what happens there, and I'll discuss some slicer settings and retraction settings that kind of allowed me to get these things to finally calm down, so the performance was much better. I also took the cooling fan and I hooked it up to a different side. On my first video I had them hooked together. Now they're hooked independent. Also, there's retraction differences between these two. So for instance, the retraction on this one, I have to change the extrusion axis on this to 111 or so, and that's spot on. On this brand, for some reason, it's 123. So either the diameter's a little different, it has more drag, something's going on with it, where this one will under extrude with the same setting as this one. So when you switch colors and things, there's a variety of things. The settings just don't always one size fits all like it would be nice if they did. Also, just so you can see, these were 2 attempts at a glow-in-the-dark ABS. It's got some definite issues going on with temperatures and things. I haven't really got these ones to work out very well. So we may try one of those as well and see what I can do with ABS and go from there. Alright, now I've been making a ton of Benchies, testing them. I decided to turn it this direction, and it seems to be doing a little bit better job actually. I also got the cooling fan set up a little bit differently. I'm finally getting the quality I'm trying to shoot for, I think. Okay, this is a pretty good little Benchy here. I'm making one more to see if I can get it a little bit better. I noticed that the arches up in here and the square top frame is actually pretty good. All the holes and the circles are pretty consistent. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. This is at a 0.15 layer height. I'll go over some of the settings on it. This is the one I did just before it at a 0.2 layer height, which isn't too bad, but you'll notice right here, here, and right there, the top of that square frame kind of sagging a little bit. I changed my print speed to 35 and my fan for cooling up to over 80%. And when I did that and I decided to print it at a 1.5, that's what I got, which is pretty good. Now I had a little bit of an issue down in here. I think I corrected that too because I actually made a modification halfway through this print. So right now I'm actually printing one. It's right here. You notice I have it stern first, and I noticed when I changed it this direction, I actually started getting a little bit better print quality out of it for some reason. Otherwise I had it printed on the side, sideways, going the other direction. So sometimes just a simple change like that can make a difference. These are some of the slicer settings I have. Now I can only operate an older version of Cura. Happens to be right there, so 15.043. I have 2 different versions. One I've set up to do PLA, that's this one. And I also have one slightly newer that I use, and that one is version, there it is, 15.04.6. The reason why I have two versions, and I could probably do this easier, but I'm doing it just for the fact that I like to use one of them for PLA and the other one I'm using for ABS, and then I can set up two different things in two different machines without loading and reloading everything. This is the interface on the internet that connects through my particular port there to the Duet Maestro board. And right now it shows, you know, what I've got on my temperatures. It shows X, Y, and Z axis and everything else going on because I'm printing a Benchy. And I'm doing it with the cheap, run-of-the-mill, basic yellow PLA. So it hasn't been the best, but we're playing around with it. And it's inexpensive to use to try this stuff out and try to bench test everything. However, but the difference between yellow and the Hatchbox orange is definitely the flow on it, so it doesn't under extrude. On this one is 110, where I have the settings on the config file for the orange, and I don't have to I can put that flow on Cura at 100 if I'm going to print it in orange. So just because you have PLA, if you don't have the same kind or consistency, you can get inconsistent results based on manufacturer, color, and everything else. Okay, right here is the web interface. It shows my IP address right here that I'm using, and you'll have to figure that out on your own. Pretty simple to do. It's on the Duet Maestro board. You can see my other video on that conversion. But right now you can see the temperatures, some of the settings up in here. I'm only printing this at 180 degrees and the bed is 60, and it seems to be working quite well. It seems to do better at a little bit lower temperatures. However, what we're going to do is we're going to come down here into settings, and we're going to go to the system editor and the config G. This shows us the G code on how this system boots up. But what I'm most specifically looking at is this right here. This E102 happens to be the extruder. I'm sure you've seen how you calibrate by measuring and extruding 100 millimeters of filament. You make a mark at 120 and then you see how many millimeters are left once you extrude. If it's all the way to 120, you're over extruding by 20 millimeters, and you have to adjust that E setting. In this case, 102 works really well with the Hatchbox orange PLA that I'm using. And I kind of keep this as my baseline figure right here. It tends to be what I need in this configuration file. If I reboot it right now while it's printing, it'll crash my print. So I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted to show where that was. Settings, System Editor, Config G. Okay? I'm going to move this over here. Now what we're going to look at is Cura. Now I have an old version of Cura. I've already mentioned this once before. This is because I run Windows Vista and I don't want to upgrade this whole computer because it's too slow a processor to put the new version of Windows on, and thus I can't run the first and latest and greatest version of Cura. However, I'm running 15.043 on this machine, and the settings that I happen to have that have worked almost flawlessly, and I'll pull out this last one, is going to be a layer height between 1 and 2, and I have 3 different Benchies that I will produce, one at 1, one at 1.5, and one at 2, and the one that is printing at layer height of 1 is right now. I'm using a shell thickness of 1.6. I'm enabling retraction. I'm going to go over here, click this. The travel I have, and these can be changed, that's 7 and 0.06. And I'm combing all at this, and I have the Z-hop off in this case. Next we have the bottom, the top thickness 1.2, fill density 20. These are all checked, 20. Infill perimeters is checked. I've got a slow print speed, and this helps keep these problem areas coming out better. 35, 180, 60-degree bed temp, no support, no platform adhesion, and the diameter is 1.75, 100 flow, and nozzle size is 0.4. Alright, quickly we're going to go over some advanced settings. I've got 80 on my speed for retraction, 6mm distance. It seems to be working really well. I get much slower than that. I get a little bit of stringing still. You know, those speeds and everything all depend on temperature. There's a combination of things. If you have a higher temperature, you might need to change the speed and the distance. But right now, these seem to be working quite well. Layer thickness 0.3, layer line width, initial layer line width is 120. Cutoff 0.07 off the bottom just so I can see the text there. You can use 0, it doesn't matter. I'm using a glass heated bed right now. I do have a magnetic one, but had a couple little issues with the magnetic one, so I've been favoring the glass with a little hairspray. Anyway, you can see the dual extrusion, that doesn't really count. I don't have a dual extruder. Speed travel in between is 180, but the bottom layer speed is 25, infill 0, which is going to go with the default of 35, I believe. Outer shell 0.25, well 25%, minimum layer time. Cooling is 5 with cooling fan enabled. It's right there. Okay. You can usually get your fill diameter and your nozzle size off the machine specs. The fill diameter is going to be something that has to do with the PLA, so you'll have to kind of look at that from there. Okay, one more real quick note on filament and flow. Depending on the color, you're going to have to measure these out. My yellow, I have to bump that up to 111 in order to get it, where the orange I have it preset up in that config file I showed you that hits it almost exactly where I need it. It's very, very close. So I leave my baseline on the hatch box, but the other PLA, when I move it, when I cut with it or print with it, I gotta bump that flow rate up to 110. When I've been doing it on ABS, I also gotta jump that up considerably when I'm printing ABS. Okay, this is a Benchy, and it is being pulled up in Cura. I like to move it so it doesn't print in the middle. I print on the leading edge, closer to that. I'm going to rotate this, and lately I've actually been printing them in this direction. So lately I've been printing them this way, and for some reason when I've done that, when I've changed to this direction, it seems to print a little bit better, and the ovals and the arches turn out a little cleaner. Also, I made some changes to the print speed, slowed it down a little bit, and sped up the fan a little bit, and that seems to have made a significant difference. Alright, something else I did is this all aluminum anodized feed system. A little bit stiffer tension on the spring. It makes sure that it's working a little bit tighter against the filament as it goes through the Bowden tube. Of course, it's got the clips here to prevent this little thing to compress and back and forth. And you can see it working right now, doing a little bit of retraction right there as it's printing. Great upgrade. Found it on eBay, less than 15 bucks. Alright, I'm just trying to show this 120 that we're measuring here with the black dot on the ruler. We're going to extrude yellow, orange, and ABS on this, just so you can see how this works. And we're going to use our new upgrade that we did with the anodized aluminum setup here. Okay, as you can see here, I'm heating up the extruder right here to 190. It's pretty much there right now. You can see the graph right here. We're going to extrude through this 100 millimeters of filament, and we're going to check with that measurement I just did to see how accurate it is. So we're going to come down here, the extrude button, we're going to move this over to 100, and we're going to hit extrude. Bringing up the head a little bit so it's not right on the glass. We're going to do this with yellow. Right now we have orange hatchbox in it. The yellow is going to be a cheaper deal. Then we're going to do it with the ABS, but the ABS temperature instead of 190 up here, It's going to be 230, but we're going to double check that too, and we're just going to show the results. So here we go. Here's extruding 100 of the Hatchbox orange. See the black dot going down? And we'll get a quick measurement on that when it's done. Okay. As you can see, we're almost dead on. Maybe a tiny bit over extrusion, maybe 1 millimeter. It's pretty much right on. Okay, I'm going to change it out for the yellow. Okay, here goes the yellow. See the black dot getting closer. And then we'll measure that one and see where that one ends up being. You can see that one's like under extruding by about 5 right there. You can see it goes 2, 5, almost to 3. That's why I say different materials will have different results. So I'd have to make a note, and when I use the yellow, I'm going to have to change figure someplace. One place to change the figure is to go here on our settings, System Editor, Config G. We already talked about this a little bit earlier, but right here on this E102, we would move that to like E107 right here, and that would give us 5 more millimeters of extrusion, and it would probably take care of that with the yellow. Right now it's set at 102, and that's working really good with the Hatchbox orange. Now we're going to try the ABS. I switched to a Hatchbox glow-in-the-dark ABS, and because it's ABS, I went to 235. And my temperature can do the same 100 millimeter extrusion. You can see it's been marked. It's right here. So here we go, and we'll see where that ends up. So remarkably, that one ended up being almost right on the money, the same as the orange PLA. And this is the glow-in-dark Hatchbox ABS. So you write these notes down, then you know if you're going to need to make adjustments when you start your project to get best results. Okay, so here we have a orange Benchy, quite a bit better. The arches are better, they're squared off, the circle's round. A little bit of stuff here with the orange one, but otherwise pretty good. Then I have this yellow one. The yellow one, the outside finish looks pretty decent all the way around, really. Pretty good arches, but I got this little very fine, very fine, wispy, like spider web. Once again, it's got to be because of the different brand or the quality of the PLA. Kind of interesting. Hit it with a heat gun probably, and it'll take care of that, but just a little bit different. Everything else is pretty good though. It's just that little bit of stuff. So, you know, you can fine-tune all you want, but every single slice with a different type of product is going to be slightly different. Okay, we're working on a yellow PLA Benchy right now. It's one of the last ones I'm going to do a little bit of follow-up, just so you realize that part of this video was shot with a different type of extrusion system. I already brought it up, but some of the numbers are a little different. When I went to this higher tension spring and the anodized aluminum setup, it actually made the extrusion, and it actually created a better extrusion system. And the settings when I'm going to extrude the same amount of PLA of different colors, there's still differences, but they're much more accurate. They're a lot closer together. And I think that has to do with the tighter spring and the better system that I've got set up right here. So you're going to have to experiment with your own system and make it work. Once again, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. That's how we make these things possible. I know my channel is a little bit unique because I have a variety of things I do on it, including flying, some fun stuff, car work, all kinds of different things. So like, subscribe, and share with others if you can. Post some comments and we'll see if we can't make maybe an update on this a little bit later. I hope you like it. Thanks for watching. Just another quick shot of this yellow one. I hit it a little bit with a heat gun and it took care of all that little spider web stuff that was going on. But other than that, I think it turned out pretty good. Pretty decent finish overall. So similar settings to the orange PLA, but had to do a little bit more percentage of extrusion because of the difference in the way that the retraction and stuff was working with this particular brand of filament.